I never intended to stay in that house for long. It was supposed to be temporary, just a quiet place in a small town while I sorted out my life. People always talk about small towns like they're peaceful, safe, predictable. But I learned the truth the hard way. In small towns, there is nowhere for the darkness to hide, so it hides in plain sight. The first few nights were normal, too normal. The kind of silence that feels staged, like the house was waiting for me to let my guard down. I didn't notice anything until the fourth night, when I woke up with the feeling that someone was standing right next to my bed. I turned the lamp on. Nothing, but the air felt thick, colder than the rest of the room, as if a presence had just stepped out of sight. I tried to ignore it. I shouldn't have. The first real sign came the next evening, right after sunset. I heard scratching sounds coming from inside the walls, slow, rhythmic, like fingernails dragging along wood. I pressed my ear against the plaster. The scratching stopped, then something scratched from the other side, right where my ear was. I stumbled back, heart racing. Houses make noise, sure, but nothing makes that kind of noise. Not rats, not pipes. This was deliberate. That night I left the bedroom door open. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to feel like I wasn't closed in with whatever was in that room. Maybe a part of me hoped the house would behave if I stopped treating it like a threat. But at around 3 a.m. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, barefoot, slow. They stopped right outside my bedroom door. I couldn't breathe, not move, not think. The door didn't open, but I heard breathing. Right on the other side, deep, steady, human. I lay there until sunrise, staring at the ceiling, trying not to make a sound. The next morning, I told myself I imagined it. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. But the house had other plans. Around noon, I found the first letter under my door. No envelope, no signature, just a single sheet of yellow, brittle paper. The handwriting was childlike, uneven, shaky. At first it was just symbols. Circles, crude figures, jagged lines. I thought maybe some kid was playing a prank, but that night another letter appeared, and this one had words. "We see you." My stomach twisted. The next letter came the following morning. "You looked at us once. Look again." I felt sick. Had I? When? Then I remembered the mirror. The house had one in the hallway, tall, old, with a frame that looked carved by hand. I avoided it after the first night because something felt wrong about it. It always seemed to reflect the hallway slightly darker than it actually was, like the glass was tinted by something other than age. I tried not to look at it, but I was beginning to feel watched all the time anyway. On the seventh day, everything changed. I came home late. The house was silent as usual, but it wasn't empty. I felt it instantly, like someone was standing just out of sight. I walked into the living room and froze. The mirror was no longer in the hallway. It was standing in the middle of the room. I didn't move it. I would never touch that thing. My heart started pounding. The frame looked darker, like it had been burned. The surface of the mirror shimmered slightly, not reflecting the room correctly. It looked deeper, like a window to something that breathed. I forced myself to look into it, just for a second. I wish I hadn't. Dozens of pale faces were pressed against the inside of the glass. Not floating, pressed, as if they were trying to push through. Their eyes were black holes, wide and empty. Their mouths moved silently, forming shapes I didn't recognize. Their skin looked translucent, stretched tight over sharp bones. A faint tapping came from the other side, like fingers tapping to be let out. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair, heart slamming in my chest. I grabbed a blanket and threw it over the mirror. The fabric clung to the glass as if something underneath it moved. That night, the blanket was gone, folded neatly at the foot of my bed. I didn't sleep. The next evening, the letters intensified. They slid under the door every hour, pages filled with frantic scribbles, drawings of distorted figures, broken faces, hollow eyes. One letter was wet, smelling faintly of earth and something metallic. But one letter was different. It said, "We stand behind all mirrors, but yours is open." I threw the paper onto the floor and backed away until I hit the wall. I didn't want to look around me, but I could already feel it, behind me, behind the mirror in the hallway, behind the glass of the window, behind every reflection, watching, waiting. I tried to leave the house, but the front door wouldn't open. The lock wasn't jammed. The handle wasn't stuck. It was like the door wasn't a door anymore, just a part of the wall. I grabbed an axe from the shed and swung it at the wood. The blade didn't even scratch it. Something whispered in my ear, "You can't leave yet." I spun around, nothing there. The house grew darker even though the lights were on. Shadows stretched across the ceiling, bending into claw-like shapes. My breath fogged in front of me. The air felt wrong, thick and cold, like the inside of a cave. When I walked past the hallway mirror again, the reflection didn't match my movements. My reflection stayed still, smiling faintly. I froze. Then the reflected version of me whispered, "Look closer." The glass rippled. A hand pressed against the inside, thin, grayish, trembling. Then another, then dozens. The faces returned, their mouths opening wider, stretching impossibly. I ran into my room and slammed the door. But it was pointless. I could hear them inside the walls, inside the ceiling, inside the mirror across the room, whispering, "Let us in." Fog leaked from the edges of the mirror, creeping across the floor toward me like a living thing. The temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on my breath. I grabbed a blanket and hid under it, like a terrified child. I felt something tug it, softly, gently, as if trying to pull it away from my hands. Then I heard it, a small hand patting my shoulder. Cold, clammy, unmistakably real. I tried to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. And then everything stopped. Silence. No breathing, no whispering, no movement. I didn't come out until dawn. When I finally looked around, the mirror was back in its original place, but cracked, as if something had tried to break through and almost succeeded. I left the house that morning and never returned. I left everything behind. But the truth is, the house never truly let me go. Even miles away, I still feel its walls breathing behind me, as if they had grown lungs the night everything changed. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear the faint creaking of its floorboards, slow, deliberate, like footsteps trying to follow me across states, across time, across the thin line between memory and nightmare. The morning I left, the sky was unnaturally still. No birds, no wind, no distant hum of cars, only silence, the kind that presses against your skull until you feel your heartbeat echo through your bones. I remember locking the door, and the sound of the latch clicking felt wrong, like it wasn't locking me out, but locking something in. But I swear, right before I stepped off the porch, I heard it, a whisper, my name, so close to my ear that I felt the warmth of a breath that shouldn't have been there. I didn't turn around, I couldn't, because I knew if I looked back I'd see her again, the thing that wore my mother's face long after she died. And yet, no matter where I go, I still see reflections that don't belong to me. Shadows that stop moving the moment I notice them. Windows that show a room I'm not standing in. Every night since I left, something taps on my walls. 3 taps. Slow, intentional, like knuckles dragging across wood. It follows, it waits, and it remembers. Sometimes I dream of the house calling me back, its door wide open, the hallway lights flickering like dying stars. In those dreams, I always step inside, and the floorboards pulse like a heartbeat beneath my feet. And every single time, I wake up with dirt under my nails. The same dirt from the backyard, the same dirt from beneath the old willow tree where we buried the first body. No matter how far I run, I know the truth. The house marked me, claimed me, and whatever escaped through that mirror the night I fled, it's still looking for me. And one day, when the sun sets just a little too slowly and the shadows stretch a little too long, it will find me. I felt it for the first time last week. Just a flicker at the corner of my eye, like the world dimmed for half a second. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, paranoia, a lack of sleep building up. But the truth is, I recognized that darkness. It moved the same way the shadows used to crawl along the walls of that house, slowly, intentionally, as if deciding whether I deserved to be swallowed whole. Since that night, twilight feels wrong to me, unnatural. The sun doesn't simply set anymore. It sinks, like something is dragging it down behind the horizon, and when the final rays disappear, the air changes. It grows colder, thicker, heavy with a presence I know too well, a presence that never forgave me for running. 3 days ago, I heard it again, the tapping, not on my door this time, on the window beside my bed, 3 gentle taps, like a polite request from something that has no reason to be polite. When I finally gathered the courage to look, I saw nothing but my own reflection in the glass. But there was something wrong with it. Its eyes were a fraction too wide, its smile a fraction too slow to vanish when I blinked. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't copying me. It was waiting for me to move so it could catch up. I slept with the lights on that night, though they didn't help. Around 3 a.m. the bulbs flickered, not randomly, rhythmically, almost like Morse code. And each flicker cast shadows that didn't match the furniture in my room. One looked like a hunched figure with elongated fingers dragging across the floor. Another looked like a head tilting, listening, learning the pattern of my breath. The shadows moved even when the lights were steady. Yesterday, I found dirt on my doorstep again. The same dark soil from the old backyard. The same soil we swore never to dig up again. It was placed in a perfect circle, like something had been standing there, watching my door for hours, unmoving, patient. That's when I realized what scares me most. It doesn't want to hurt me. It wants me to come back, to finish what was started the night the mirror broke, because something crawled out of that shattered glass. Something that should have stayed buried under the willow tree with the others. Something that learned my name the moment it first saw my reflection trembling. And now, every night, I hear it whisper through the walls. Soft, pleading, almost human. Come home. But it isn't my home anymore. It's a throat waiting to swallow me back into the darkness that raised me. Last night I felt it sit on the edge of my bed. The mattress dipped slowly, inch by inch, like a weight settling beside me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. And then I felt a cold hand slide across my back. Not grabbing, not hurting, searching. It's learning my shape again, preparing for when it finally takes me. And I know this now with absolute certainty. Running was never enough. Distance means nothing to what crawled out of that house. Time means nothing. Light means nothing. Because it marked me the moment I was born. Because it has my mother's voice. Because it wears her face when the darkness gets thick enough to shape itself. Tonight, the sun is already setting slower than usual. The sky is losing its color too early. The shadows are stretching under the door, reaching for my feet. It's close. So close I can feel its breath behind my ear as I write this. If I stop writing, if the lights go out, if the tapping starts again, I know the truth. It has finally found me, and this time, I won't be able to look away. The room grew silent, too silent, like the air itself was holding its breath. Even the distant hum of passing cars had vanished, swallowed by a pressure that wrapped around me like a cold fist. I didn't move. I didn't dare. Something stood behind me, close enough that I felt a faint shift in the air each time it inhaled. If that sound could even be called breathing, it was wet, uneven, as if lungs that weren't meant to exist were struggling to remember how to work. Slowly, impossibly slow, my reflection in the darkened window began to change. Not my face, but the space behind me. First, a shadow stretching upward, taller than any human had the right to be. Then, the faint outline of a head tilting, just slightly, as though studying me with silent fascination. My own chest tightened. I should have run. I should have screamed, but something held me still. It felt like fingers wrapping around my spine from the inside. The lights dimmed, then flickered to life again, brighter than before. So bright they burned my eyes, but the reflection didn't vanish. The figure stood there, unmoved, unaffected by light, as if it lived somewhere deeper than the physical world, somewhere beneath the thin surface of reality. Then it leaned down, not in the room, in the reflection. Its face slid into view over my shoulder, pale, stretched, skin cracked like old porcelain. Its eyes were pits, hollow, empty, but somehow aware. They weren't looking at me. They were looking into me, searching, peeling back layers of memories I'd tried to bury. A slow smile formed on its face, too wide, too deliberate. A voice, soft enough to be mistaken for a thought, crawled into my mind. "Turn around." I didn't. I couldn't. But my reflection did. It moved before I did, twisting its body toward the thing behind me. That smile grew wider, splitting at the corners like old fabric tearing. And my reflection mouthed words I didn't speak. "He's ready." The sudden cold against my neck was the first time I truly felt it. Its fingers, long and thin, brushing my skin like icy strands of wet hair. My knees buckled. I clung to the desk, fighting the urge to collapse. The temperature dropped so quickly frost formed along the window frame, creeping outward like veins of frozen lightning. The thing behind me inhaled again, a long, ragged breath, then another, and another. With every inhale, the shadows in the room stretched toward us, drawn like threads being pulled tight. I don't know how long I stood there, trapped between myself and the reflection that wasn't mine anymore. But slowly, almost mercifully, the creature lowered its head to my ear. Its voice was smaller this time, like a child whispering secrets in a dark attic. "You left, but you were never gone." A second whisper followed, then a third. Dozens, hundreds, all layered over one another. Different tones, different ages, different distances. Voices of things that had watched me since the night the mirror shattered. "Come back, come back, come back." The words grew hungrier each time. The floorboards beneath my feet began to creak, bending as if something was crawling underneath the wood, pushing upward. The walls trembled. Plaster cracked. A slow, rhythmic thumping echoed through the house, like a heartbeat buried deep beneath the foundation. My reflection snarled suddenly, its jaw dislocating with a violent snap. Its eyes rolled upward until only the whites remained. And then, without warning, the mirror burst inward, not outward, shards flying into the room, sucked towards something unseen. The creature behind me tightened its grip. For the first time I tried to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. A sensation like cold mud slid across my back, gripping, pulling, dragging me toward the broken glass on the floor. Toward the place it came from, toward the world behind the mirrors. The voices intensified until my skull vibrated with them. "You looked too long. You listened too closely. You were chosen. Come home." The last thing I saw before the lights died completely was my reflection, with a face that wasn't mine, reaching out from the shattered mirror, smiling, welcoming me. And as darkness swallowed everything, the truth finally sank in. It never wanted my house. It wanted me. And it has all the time in the world to take what it's been calling back home. But the darkness didn't stay still. It moved. At first, it was only a shift, like a slow tide dragging itself across the floor. Then it began to pulse, rising and falling, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. I tried to take a step back, but my legs refused to respond. I wasn't paralyzed. I was being held. Something cold wrapped around my ankles, not like hands, but like strands of hair, wet, heavy, clinging to my skin with a weight that made my bones ache. I forced myself to breathe. That was when I heard it, a soft dragging sound from the ceiling. I looked up. Something crawled along the plaster, its limbs bent the wrong way, its joints clicking softly like teeth tapping together. It stopped directly above me, its head hanging down, long strands of hair swinging like ropes. Where its face should have been, there was only a gaping hole, a hollow cavity inhaling and exhaling slowly, rhythmically, as though tasting the air around me. And the darkness on the floor answered it. They were communicating. The cavity on the ceiling widened, stretching open like a wound, and from deep within it came a chorus of whispers, layered, distorted, some high like children giggling, others low and trembling, like old men confessing secrets in their final breaths. The voices blended, forming one sound. "You left us." The darkness surged upward. I stumbled, crashing into the wall, feeling the cold seep through my clothes and into my bones. My fingers dug into the wallpaper, tearing long strips of it as I tried to pull myself up. But the moment I did, the lights flickered back on, only for a fraction of a second, and I saw everything frozen in place. The thing on the ceiling, the darkness rising. My reflection twisted, smiling, pointing at me with a trembling finger. Then the lights died again. I wasn't alone anymore. Something brushed past my ear, not a whisper this time, but the sensation of cold lips, cracked and thin, almost touching my skin. "You should have stayed." The room vibrated with a low hum, like a swarm of insects hidden behind the walls. The floorboards bulged upward, bending as though someone, or something, was crawling underneath, pushing, clawing, trying to break through. The thumping grew louder. 1, 2, 3, steady, predictable, like a heartbeat, but not mine. Shadows pulled away from the corners of the room, stretching toward me, merging into shapes, vague outlines of people, dozens of them, faces missing, limbs crooked, heads tilted as if listening. They stood in a half-circle around me, staring without eyes, and then one stepped forward. A woman, or something that had once been a woman. Her jaw hung loose, swinging slightly, as though held by threads instead of bone. Her neck was twisted, her hair matted with dirt. She raised one trembling finger and pointed at my chest. The rest pointed too, every single one of them. A unified motion, slow, accusatory, final. The voices rose again, a low chant vibrating through the walls, through my teeth, through the marrow of my spine. "Come home." The mirror behind them cracked, once, twice, then exploded outward, shards floating in the air instead of falling. Time stopped. Gravity stopped. The shards hung around me like stars in a black sky, each one reflecting a different version of me. One screaming, one begging, one already dead, and one smiling back. The smiling version pressed its hand against the inside of the shard, as though trying to push through. Its mouth moved slowly, deliberately, forming words with icy clarity. "You belong to us now." The darkness surged upward. The ceiling creature dropped. The walls folded inward. The cold wrapped around my throat. And I understood, with a clarity sharper than any blade. I was never escaping. I was being retrieved. The darkness had been patient. The creature had been patient. The house had been patient. Now it was done, waiting. The last sound I heard before everything collapsed was my reflection's voice. My voice, but twisted, whispering, "Don't fight. You've always been ours." And as the darkness swallowed me whole, the final, unbearable truth echoed inside my skull like a scream that would never end. Home was never a place. Home was them.